I know, it is important.
Oh, he's figuring that one out.
Good to see everybody here this afternoon. I call this meeting in the Bastrop Independent School District to let the record show that core board members and that this meeting has been duly called and a notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The following agenda items are presented for discussion and consideration for submission on the agenda. Board meeting to be held on Tuesday, April 16, 2024. No action will be taken at this meeting this evening. At this time, Mr. Edwards, would you lead us through our agenda, please?
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. What I'm going to do this evening is we're going to walk through the entire agenda, like a typical agenda review, and then I'm going to circle back to item number 2, which is the budget workshop, so we can do that and then go to closed session if needed. So, typical at every meeting, we'll start with our pledge. We'll have our opening prayer. We'll be welcoming Reverend Matt Stone from Bastrop Calvary Episcopal to come do our opening prayer. We'll have a third grade student from Blue Bonnet doing self-discipline, teaching us our character trait to self-discipline. This is always a great time of year because we get to see the culmination of so many things that our kids do, and we have great recognition. This one's going to be heavy. We're going to have 10 or 11 recognitions on Tuesday night, choir and band. As a few examples, we'll have robotics and the livestock show. So we'll look forward to celebrating our student successes with all of them.
Just for the record, no one signed up. Okay, please continue.
All right, thank you. You'll see that budget workshop is there, but like I said earlier, I'm going to circle back to that. We'll have our superintendent's report. Our first report will be on our CTE work-based learning program. Our director, Amanda Brantley, for our director of college and career readiness, will lead us through that and just the initiatives that we have out in the community and initiatives that we're potentially looking at continuing to nurture and build. Dina will then do her budget update number 3. As a result of information that we gather tonight and discussion, she'll provide the update at the regular board meeting on Tuesday.
How many updates?
4, and then the budget up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 4, yeah. We'll have a human resources, just for information, a report. Operations will be for information, as well as the police department report. In Dr. Lee's department, we'll have our spring demographic report. Christy, you want to give us a little information on what Rocky will be presenting?
Based on research, any labor market update, housing, sales, starts, for where we are at this point in the year. They always talk to the city and the EDC and other local agencies to make sure and give us the most accurate information, and then giving us an update.
Yeah, and preliminarily, I can tell you the story's the same. We're still the fast growth district. They're still coming. That hasn't changed. Those trends continue the same, and so we'll have that report in your board book for you, and he'll do that for us. All right, thank you, Christy. Then we'll have the consent agenda. You guys have the supporting documents in your board books. Then we'll move into our action items, and our first action item would be to consider the adoption of the prevailing wage. I've asked Lee Raspberry, our Director of Construction and Planning, to just give you a quick overview of that right now.
Yes, sir.
Lee?
We will we'll discuss the comprehensive survey that we've completed, and then we'll talk about the results of that survey and the recommendation that we're going to put before the board.
Okay, and you'll walk through their methodology of how we
Talk about the
arrived.
methodology and how we arrived at those numbers, what entities we included in the survey, and basically it was by the letter of the law. So Texas Government Code 2258 drove how we did it and how we conducted it, and then I think we're pretty happy with what we came out with.
How is that in comparison?
Good.
And we also use Davis-Bacon
The Davis-Bacon.
comparison. You'll see the average, you'll see all those numbers in
Yeah, so we'll have a side-by-side comparison where you'll be able to see how our recommendation fares with what current Davis-Bacon rates are.
Talked to Philip yesterday, I guess. He gave me a call. I used to talk to Anyway, so is this on? Okay. He said two of his main concerns, and has nothing less to do with numbers, his two main concerns were that maybe we put something in the contract for hiring local, like a certain percentage of the people that we could hire locally, and then also having student workers, what did he call it?
Internship.
Internships, and having internships interwoven in there, that those were part of anything that we did. Those were, I don't think that, like, he said at the end of the day, these are the two things that we're really concerned about. And it was those two things. So I'm just, is there?
And I requested that we go into closed session to talk about this topic. And so we will have that opportunity, and if Lee could be there. And the goal was the homework to get the updated wages, and because there's some outdated stuff presented in the past. And so that way, because it's been multiple years since we've done this, but I think we as a board need to go and visit with this as well.
And we call them internships, they're actually apprenticeships.
Apprenticeships.
Yes.
That's the word I was trying to think.
We call them internships in our business, but okay. Okay, so that will be that action item. And then we have a memorandum of understanding with our child development centers and PBS. It's going to be exciting. Want to give a little detail on
So
it?
it's a partnership with Austin PBS, where they will provide devices, iPad devices, to our 3 child development centers. They'll be pre-programmed with PBS early learning, programs and activities, and then Austin PBS will also provide training for our teachers at the child development centers, on rate-based learning and some other things. So we're excited about that.
What age group is that?
The child development centers, so it'll be the toddlers,
That's all going to one ratio that includes that age group.
No.
Yeah.
And actually, there are some stipulations in the MOU that the devices really can only be used by the children, by the teachers in preparation for the children, and it's limited. They don't want the children just sitting with devices all day.
Right.
It's really very targeted.
And then, all right, thank you. And then we'll have our general information items for everyone. Then there's also a closed session scheduled that night because we will be doing teacher contracts that evening. So with that, that's the agenda that we're proposing. Is there anything that we'd like to add? Or any questions on this? And then we can move on to our budget workshop.
I think you missed the delinquent tax report.
Oh, I did, that's right. Under the financial report, under item B, I apologize, thank you. Noe will be here from McCreary, Veselka, Bragg to do the financial delinquent tax report.
I looked at that in the board meeting. Yours passed.
About 1% for delinquent. But, I'm going to tell you,
Talk into your mic.
we had a slow start to the tax collection season this year. It was very slow. Everybody was starting to get nervous. It wasn't just Bastrop. We all started calling each other. I'm like, well, what are you seeing? Well, we're only at 50%, but then you have to remember as well that compression was massive this past tax season in tax year 2023. So if you're looking at last year compared to this year, it's going to be a lot lower because of compression, so.
All right. Well, Ms. Edgar, since you have the floor, why don't you continue? We're going to, now I'd like to recommend that we move into the budget workshop section and have, I'm okay if she presents, okay.
Sure.
I'll sit here. this over. Okay, so this evening, I will take you through our latest update of the budget development for 24-25. Had trouble with the clicker earlier. We'll see. Oh, all right. I don't know what happened. It's just delayed. Okay, so we'll start with a recap of the state of school finance in Texas. So while our state boasts an estimated $20 billion budget surplus, the 88th legislature failed to pass a school finance bill, leaving school districts with the same funding levels that we had in 2019, while at the same time, we've all experienced record high inflation over the past 5 years. So this combined with federal COVID dollars expiring, federal Medicaid reimbursement losses of over $400,000, and that $400,000 is to Bastrop personally, flawed funding formulas for socioeconomic students, and then the hold harmless formulas on the loss of the frozen values. This all results in hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost revenue. Then on top of all that, we were given directives on security mandates that were grossly underfunded. So given all of that, we begin our budget process with our initial budget assumptions. We're estimating 11,915 students in average daily attendance, which is about a 3.4% increase over the current year. Early property value estimates are up over 6% at $8.46 billion. We're currently estimating our total tax rate at $6.79 compared to $7, so it's a fraction of a penny of a decrease. We're modeling a compensation increase of $2.4 million. Elementary number 9 startup costs at about $82,000. ESSER payroll absorptions and reassignments of about $1.2 million. And then 3 new CTE teachers for new programming at the middle school. It's important to emphasize we are not making major reductions to staffing, but rather filling vacancies and growth positions by reassignments of existing ESSER-funded teachers and staff. And we have remained totally committed to our teachers throughout this whole process.
The compensation modeling, what does that consist of?
That is a 2% raise.
The average daily attendance takes into account the
Growth. Yes, ma'am.
And the new elementary
The other way.
startup, was that,
So that would be your principal starting in March. Previously, when we started the 2 new campuses that are currently open, we started those principals earlier, so we did delay the hiring of those principals and the AP, counselor, librarian, assist the principal secretary. So it's just a bundle of startup positions that will start before the school opens.
right? 1 year. No, we were talking about construction earlier, that we're not going to open up 2 elementaries at the same time.
No,
With this-
correct. This
So
is
that'll
for
help a
one.
little bit with the budget, so we'll open 1,
Yes.
then following your.
This is just number
Spread it
9.
out. Okay.
Correct, yeah, which is actually very good for the budget at this point.
Good.
Okay, so we're taking a little deeper dive into average daily attendance compared to other surrounding districts. What you can see is that in our pre-COVID years, our average daily attendance is lower than most districts, but this also has a direct correlation to our ranking in socioeconomic status, especially when you look at districts that are over 70% in economically disadvantaged. So if I could direct your eye towards Maynard down, you can see that our ranking in socioeconomic status is very comparable to our attendance ranking among those groups. But when comparing this year's attendance rate to date, we do outrank 4 districts, and if you look at just the second semester, we're outperforming 6 districts. And that's not the far right column, but it's the next to last right column. So the takeaway on this chart, it's a very busy chart, and it tells you a lot of information, but my takeaway is that we're starting with a disadvantage as far as average daily attendance, but we're faring as well, if not better, than some districts that have a better advantage. Okay, the next chart is our tax rate history over 10 years. As a reminder, as property values increase, the tax rate will continue to compress. So since tax year 2018, the district has lowered the tax rate by 37.3 cents while passing and selling bonds in 2021 and then again in May of '23.
Is it fair to say on that average daily attendance, because this has been a board goal for several years, especially, after COVID and rebounding, but that there are some measures within the budget for the staff that manages that to
Yes.
improve these numbers?
That's right, there
Okay.
is. Okay. So moving into current projections. We're forecasting revenues at around $128 million, which includes your tax collections, your other local revenue, state aid, and then some federal revenue that's mostly those Medicaid reimbursement monies that we were talking about earlier. There are some other things like E-rate and indirect costs that's in that number. Our expenditures started out with all of the ESSER payroll included. That's the 2.872. Plus the additional payroll assumptions that we just reviewed a couple slides ago. Then your non-payroll is comprised of your utilities, operations and maintenance, your transportation costs, all of the things that we need to run the district. We did assume a 3.5 inflation factor on all the non-payroll line items. So at the onset, we're starting out with revenues over expenditures with a deficit of almost $8 million.
Hey, on that non-payroll operations, since we brought it back in-house, were we able to reduce that number than what we were paying?
Not this year,
Not this year, just, okay.
yeah. But I'd look to do that, and I'll be analyzing all those expenditures.
We're also in our first year of it too, so bringing it back in-house.
Right, right,
Okay.
and we're finding things that we need that we didn't think of, and
Right.
so,
Christina, just real quickly,
Yes,
on
ma'am.
the ESSER funds, I'm sure you probably made some sort of, I guess, the best way to say you solved for, at some point, for us not having that funding in the future.
yeah, so that will be on the next slide.
Okay,
actually.
sorry. As always.
So as we began our work to balance the budget, we started with these guiding principles to first align decisions with our mission, vision, and goals, prioritize the classroom and teaching and learning, engage stakeholders with our recommendations, limit non-essential hiring and new initiatives, remain compliant, of course, with state and federal mandates, and then sharing and communicating adjustments while focusing on high-quality instruction. And that brings us to our next slide, which is an itemization of our reduction and efficiency plan as of yesterday. So I'm going to take you through this. We have asked all departments to reduce their budgets by 15%. We have not reduced campus budgets.
That's a fair question.
I didn't hear the question.
How do you reduce a budget by 15%? Like, what cuts are you asking these departments to make?
So, a lot of it is food for meetings, things like that. People have also, they're creating efficiencies in their own budgets and prioritizing their travel, for example. Instead of going to all conferences, they're trying to consolidate that and have one person go and come back and train everybody else. Previously, like maybe 4 people would go, so they're doing that, kind of a train the trainer. Also trying to do more things in-house.
Software.
Well, yeah, software is.
We have that itemized separately.
Yeah, I did pull the software out, but we looked at software as well, but we have it as a standing item, but a lot of us did look at software reductions.
Out for a year.
Correct. It is. That's under, so we have your software reductions as the next line item, and then right on your position freezes and changes, you're right, that's where all of those service center freezes and the associate superintendent's in that number. There's several other service center positions that became vacant that we just froze for the year. Digital learning specialist, I think, was one of them. Included in that number is also reducing full-time rehires that have already resigned. So we, instead of replacing those teachers with additional retirees, we'll place them with certified teachers, which saves about $12,000 per teacher. And they're at the high end of the pay scale, and then we have to pay a surcharge to TEA to use them. And that surcharge is about $12,000. Now, we could still use them part-time, and that's no charge to the district. So that's what. No, you know, they did during COVID. We had 1 year grace where they didn't charge us that surcharge because we were all short of teachers, but then, yeah, it came back. So.
I just want to go back real quickly to clarify. I just want to clarify, you said no campus changes, so.
No
impact
reduction to the per student campus budgets. We're really, really trying not to hit the classroom. So, for example, with department budgets, we hit athletics, athletic director budget at the service center level, but we didn't hit the campus level budgets, fine arts as well. Okay. Then we'll pause UIL activities at elementary, and we'll pause convocation for another year. I mentioned in a previous presentation that we'll be prepaying some expenses out of this year's budget where possible, so whenever we have an opportunity to do that as we roll into the end of the year, we'll be doing that. We'll also be maximizing grant funds where we are able. We'll offset some major maintenance, mainly HVAC to bond because it's in scope. We've reassigned some ESSER positions, and we'll utilize some fund balance in various funds, including the fund balance we had assigned for economic stabilization 2 years ago, if you recall, in preparation for the expiration of the ESSER funds. So after all of that, we have less than $200,000 to close the gap. So we've been doing a lot of work on this.
And Dina, sorry, so I just want to make sure that I understood correctly when you referred to security being grossly underfunded in a couple of slides, or
Yes.
slides ago. But is that still the case? Or yeah?
Yes, that's, so they did offer new revenues, but it wasn't enough to satisfy all the mandates that were put forth. And likely we'll have to, revisit that.
But I want to be clear, we're not making any reductions to security. What we're referring to is, if you'll remember the mandate to have,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And we created the waiver to postpone it. Well, now, because of this, we're going to have to do another waiver to postpone it again. It's not a reduction, it's just,
Correct.
it's just, yeah.
That's in the waiver, like, good for a period of time, and then you have to.
Yeah, because we put a timeline on it, right? So obviously, we're not going to meet our timeline. And so we'll have to come back to you at a later date and redo that waiver and restate the timeline. And that's what she's referring to.
But even security right now, because we said freeze, position freeze, so if we have a police officer retiring, are we replacing that?
Yes, we are. Yes, and
So-
we are. We will keep, classroom positions have to be fully staffed because we have kids there, right? And our security will still be fully staffed. We're not going to do anything to the essential functions.
Exactly. We're looking at every vacancy that comes up and seeing if, can we go 1 year without it? Or is it vital? So that's
But
kind of
not
the
in
approach.
security.
In some instances, you have to hire it, Okay.
Is that like maybe how we can make up that $200,000, or is that?
So that will be one of the things that we look forward to, and I I have that. I'm looking forward to continued efficiencies and revenue opportunities. So yeah, all of those things we'll be looking to do. Okay, so next steps involve the continuation of reassignments and filling our vacant positions, and I'm happy to say that all 26 previously ESSER-funded positions have found seats within this budget and filled vacant positions. We're monitoring any funding formula changes through the finance template for potential revenue changes. And, you heard me talk about the hold harmless formula flaws. I mean, we're hopeful but not optimistic that they're going to make any changes. We have heard of some changes on the debt service side, which we'll take, but it doesn't help this deficit. But we're hopeful. We'll continue to monitor it. We will lock in healthcare increases in early May, so healthcare is still an estimated number, so that's a variable. We estimate at 4%, so we'll have that locked in May. And then we'll continue again to look for efficiencies and revenue sources as we go along. And of course, analyze enrollment and registration numbers as the summer comes and throughout the summer.
And just real quickly, you said healthcare increases. What about risk management?
We have that in.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and that was quite substantial. That was about a $200,000 increase this year. So, yeah. Ouch.
So how do you cover your $1 million deductible per building, per hailstorm, per windstorm?
Right.
How would we do that?
Well, we have other assignments and fund balance for that
Okay.
purpose. So we would, if we couldn't find it within the constraints of the budget, we would have to look for that revenue source.
Right.
That's the deductible?
Yes. And it's,
I thought my deductible.
oh, it is.
Oh, wait, your deductible's
Yeah,
high.
it's twice the premium.
Yeah, and honestly, earlier this week, it was a hard night sleeping, thinking
Telling
about
me.
what could have happened to
was
some
up
of
all
our roofs that we just did, the construction. Yeah, it was,
Happened to Lubbock last year, around this time, or some of our districts in the Panhandle.
so we're looking on roofs, looking at all that right now as we speak, so.
Right.
Adina, this $8 million shortfall that we have this year, legislature doesn't meet until another year. So we're looking at 2 years of shortfalls. Is that the way you
So, no,
evaluate this?
legislature will meet in January of '25 for the next biennium. So there's an opportunity there for the next budget to have new revenues.
You don't think this committee that's in place now reviewing the flawed formula from the homestead increase has the authority or will make the authority to make up the difference? It doesn't probably have to be
So
Does it have to
it's
be
a
a
lobbying
legislative
organ. Yeah, well, it's really,
not ESSER money.
so it's
just the-
interpretation of the law by TEA, and Mike Morath has the authority to interpret the law and how the formula is being applied in the funding formula. And we believe, and this organization, several organizations believe it's not being interpreted correctly. So they're appealing to TEA, but it does not require legislative activity. It just requires a difference of opinion in how to interpret the formula.
So you don't see any hope in '24 for the $5 million shortfall?
No. I'd like to hold out, but they're already saying they're going to apply it to the INS side, the debt service side. They're going to give us the hold harmless, which they didn't have to, but they will. We would have been okay regardless on the INS side. But we'll take the hold harmless because it'll be additional revenue on that side as well. But I don't see it happening. I think it's too late, So, all right, let's look at our timeline. Okay, so we'll receive our official certified values from the appraisal district at the end of this month. We'll present our proposed budget in May, and then we'll publish our required notice in the Bastrop Advertiser the weekend of June 1st. We'll hold that public hearing and budget adoption on June 18th. We do have until the 30th. We'll then get updated property values from BCAD on July 25th. And remember, you've heard me say there's often a lot of changes between the April preliminary certified to the certified because all the under review comes in. But that will determine our tax rate after we get the certified values, and then we'll present that to the board in August, and then we'll hold the tax rate hearing and adopt that tax rate in September.
Dina, do you have any feeling on interest rates and?
Yeah, I'm getting
I always
nervous.
ask. I just always want to know. I feel like they're not going to do anything, but that's just me.
Right, I feel the same way.
A lot of things are still high.
But I do want to lock in if I get wind that, you know, they're going to go down, because we're earning a lot of interest right now on the bond proceeds, and I want to continue those high yields. So, and actually, we're yielding pretty well on the M&O side as well. Yeah.
But the bond proceeds can only be used for the bonds.
Correct.
Period. Not-
That's
It
correct.
doesn't help this.
Correct.
Right.
No, but on the values
Yeah.
side, you know, I do see that our certified values are probably going to take a dip this time around.
They've slowed, yeah. They have slowed, for sure. But, you know, again, property values used to be a big component in the funding formula, and it's not as much anymore, because as, you know, as values increase, they just take that state aid away. So we're flat. That's how the formula is we're flat.
And it's meant to be that way.
Yes.
It's meant to be.
Well, not this year. We're not flat.
I have one last question, I guess, more about the ESSER individuals. I know that they were, you know, offered to apply for other positions and that sort of thing. Do we have any idea on numbers? Sticking around and, obviously in their same position that they were, but going back to the classroom or things like that?
We do, and because those are personnel matters, what we thought we'd do is, when we go into closed session, talk about the teacher contracts, we could address those specifically. I don't want to call people's names or positions here, so.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
We'll move into closed session, and we can discuss those in detail.
Process that I've been reviewing with Mr. Edwards is, you know, all the way from the campus level with their leader, them on one, off. It's been very, very busy,
And I do want to thank our principals, Diana Green, just everyone who's been pitching in. As uncomfortable as this is, the teachers have been quiet. They've been honestly very cooperative considering the circumstances. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done, the way that they've accepted it, so to speak. It's not to say it's going to be easy, but we really have done an outstanding job of getting everyone a job and making it super easy for them. I mean, just trying to give them their choice. And when they're undecided, what we'll do is we just earmark them in a position, and should they choose to find a different job, that's okay. We're okay with that. We'll just adjust it then. So we're just doing anything and everything that we can to make this transition easier.
Yes, we do. In fact, tomorrow, we'll have a message that is already prepared that will go to all families. We'll include all staff on that as well, even though it's really addressed to families. You know, you may remember we had communicated with them previously, the staff, to kind of give them a heads up about what we were doing with the budget. So that will go tomorrow, and then we have some individual messages going to smaller groups of parents that are, you know, uniquely impacted by a particular program or decision.
And is it fair to say this is every school district, public school district in the state of Texas that took these funds? Yes.
Go ahead.
So that everybody is short,
Right.
majority. There are some rural, we're hearing some very rural districts that are not impacted as much, but majority, Region 13, we're all impacted.
Right, and I think it's if they took advantage of the opportunities of the funds, you know, to create those positions, you know, employ those positions, you know.
Right, and just to be clear, we always known that the ESSER funds would run out this year. We had a plan for that. We did some really robust things with those funds, knowing that was going to end. And teachers every year sign, and all of us employees who are on any kind of funded, sign an addendum that they understand it can run out. Here's what changed, though. We thought that the legislature, we'd get the money that we keep talking about, and that what we'd be able to do is roll them into the general fund. That was our plan all along. This cliff that you'll hear referred to, the cliff is the ESSER money's gone, and now we have nothing. We didn't get funded enough to bring them back in. So we're going to remain optimistic and diligent that through the next legislative session that we're going to get some funding and be able to get back, start building back some of the things that we're having to reduce at this time, or reassign, really. We still have our quality people, they're just in different positions.
And something similar to this happened in 2012.
11, 12, yeah. But anyway, thank you for y'all's support. That is our agenda review and our budget workshop, so we can go to close.
This time we'll be moving to closed session. The board will now convene in a closed meeting to discuss the following items posted on the Government Code 551.07. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Action the board wishes to take as a result from discussion of the closed session will be taking place after the board reconvenes.
That's correct.
After this closed session. Time now is 6:06 p.m. We'll be meeting.
Yeah, we're
Long day. I'm dog sitting.
Chris.
Not ready. Did he leave?
No, he would.
Oh, little boys. Ay. So glad we don't get paid. I was thinking about this the other night. My husband's like, do you guys?
Ready? Right. Time now is 7:39 PM. Board will now reconvene into open session. There is no action. Objection. This meeting. Adjourned. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
11 there.